So welcome everybody. My name is Dennis Laut. I'm strategy consultant for Across Health, and welcome to our webinar around multi-channel Maturometer Snapshot. We have done on a, I think, quite hot topic at the moment, embracing and harnessing digital for product launches. Just to explain, what is a Maturometer Snapshot all about? I think most of you know the multi-channel Maturometer, which is our big survey we are doing on a yearly basis. And this survey is tracking the industry's digital readiness and maturity over the last 11 years. And on top of that, what we are doing on ad hoc topics, we have also launched now the Across Health's Maturometer Snapshot. And this snapshot is indicated to give and provide new insights on focus areas like, for example, the topic we are speaking about today, how to harness and embrace digital at launch situations. The survey was open for participation in September 2019, and close to 50 people have responded to that across the industry. Before we start with the results, we would like to do a quick poll with the audience, where we would like to ask the questions, where do you see the greatest benefits of a digital enabled launch? Do you think it's to improve the impact of offline efforts? Do you think it's to reduce the time to critical frequency? Do you think it's to reach more physicians and to overcome access restrictions, to improve customer engagement by channel affinity alignment? Or do you believe that there's no real business benefit, it's just a nice to have? If you would give us your vote, would like give 15 more seconds for that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Let's have a look at the results. So the people in the line, they said the biggest benefit or the greatest benefit of a digital enabled product launch is to reach more physicians and to overcome access restrictions. It's 50% of the respondents. 8% that it also reduces time to critical frequency, and the other majority of 38% that it's about improving customer engagement by channel affinity and alignment. So reach more physicians and overcome access restrictions and improving customer engagement by channel affinity alignment are seen by the people have dialed in as a major benefits of a digital enabled launch. We will look at the results also of the broader snapshot, and then we will discuss this again later. Let's go to some background. I think you are all aware that last year was a very successful year regarding number of FDA-approved drugs. What you see on this slide is from 2008 to 2018. In 2018, it was a record year with 59 FDA-approved drugs. And since 2008, a continuous increase on a CAGR of 10% more approvals by the FDA every year. But on the other side, time for product launches in the pharmaceutical industry has never been more challenging. If you see on the left side that the industry returns on R&D investment is continuously going down. In 2008, there was still, $1.6 on every R&D dollar spent, and you see that this number has gone down dramatically over the last 10 years. And on top of that, also we all feel now challenges of our traditional commercial and go-to-market model. Market access is getting tougher. Health budgets are under fierce deficits, which is driving generic and biosimilar penetration in a lot of areas. Some markets, like for example oncology, are getting hyper competitive and crowded. The access to physicians is getting more and more tough. So we see in particular in areas which are hyper competitive and crowded, that access to those physicians is getting more and more tough. And on the other side, there is still a very low adoption of digital channels. And that means for the industry that also the budgets for bringing products into the markets will go down based on all this pressure. And at the end, that means for the industry doing more with less. You also know, and that's you know, from still I think a very good analysis which was done a couple of years ago by Evaluate Pharma and McKinsey, when they have looked at different launches and found that 65% of launches that exceeded the forecast in the first year continued also to do so in the second year. And in contrast, you know, that if launches are really lagging behind their forecast, they also continue to do so in the second year. And that's all about that, you know, the launch window of the first 6 to 12 months is super critical. And the big question is here, how can you maximize really this launch window to best possible extent? So if you look at the respondents of the snapshot Maturometer, you see that the respondents to, you know, broad majority was coming from the pharmaceutical biotech industry, where we had more than 80% of the respondents from pharma biotech. In terms of geographic scope, we had more than 50% from local affiliates, global headquarter, another 26%, and from regional headquarter, we had roughly 20%. From a management level perspective, 50%, around 50% had been on a R&D director level, managers 33%, and then on an even higher seniority in the organization, we had close to 10% on a VP or higher level. And in terms of function who filled this questionnaire, we had over 50% working in digital and multi-channel, 22% on marketing, but also from sales, market research, and other functions, we had respondents. If we go to the next poll, so when does your company normally start with digital activities to support the launch of a product? Is it significantly ahead of launch, for example, 80 to 24 months prior to the commercial availability then of the product? Is it at commercial launch of the product? Is it several months post-launch? Depends. It's not part of your current standard launch excellence. Or do you currently not add any digital components to your product launches? Please give us your vote, and we will still wait for another 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So let's have a look at the results. So the majority of people said they are, you know, considering digital activity supported product launch at the commercial launch of the product, with 36%. 28% responded it depends. It's not part of the current standard launch excellence process. Another 24% said it's significantly ahead of launch, which I think it's good news. It's 80 to 24 months prior, really to use this window of opportunity to shape the market and to make the audience, the target audience, conversion ready once the product hits the market. And then 4% indicate we do not add a digital component to our product launches at this time. Let's look at the results from the Maturometer Snapshot. The first question we asked to the audience was, you know, what is the level of experience currently in this industry to leveraging digital for product launches? And as you see here, that's quite encouraging that 70% of the respondents said that they have a significant experience where they used digital channels for 2 or more product launches in the past already. 30% that they have a limited or no experience with digital at launch. But here, I think the very encouraging result is that the majority of the respondents said they have already some or even significant experience leveraging digital channels for product launches. The next question we have asked the audience is to distribute then 100 points across their top 3 bottlenecks, the top 3 barriers to orchestrate a digital enabled product launch. And as you see there on the slide, that the biggest bottleneck, the biggest perceived bottleneck by the respondents have been that there is a lack of a robust digital strategy to support product launches. 18% indicated that as that is their key bottleneck and their key issue at the moment. Not really surprising, what comes in second is a lack of internal capabilities and skills. That, by the way, that's also something we see in each of our yearly Maturometers, that capability skills is always seen as one of the key bottlenecks to better embrace also digital. And but perhaps surprising, 13% of the respondents said they are still not convinced about the return on investment using digital for product launches. And you see that only 4% of the respondents said that there are no barriers within their company really to embrace the opportunity of a digital enabled product launch. The next question, if you look at that question from a perspective, people who have a high experience and a low experience, what you see that in the low experience group, the lack of robust digital strategy to support a product launch is even more pronounced. At 22% of the low experience group say, we need to have a clear guidance, we need to have a clear strategy, and they see this lack of clear guidance and strategy as one of the key bottlenecks. Next to that, also in the low experience group, the lack of internal capabilities and skills is also more pronounced to be seen as a key barrier to leverage the opportunity of digital. And the 15% also of the low experience group indicate that there are always such a lot of tasks, launch team needs to do that, which keeps them busy, that they can't really plan also what they should do with their digital component to augment the activities for a product launch. When we look at the same question and look, how different levels of the organization responded to this question, you see that senior levels in the organization generally feel more confident about the digital component of their launch strategy. And the next thing, also in terms of capabilities, that on a manager level, that is something which is seen much more as an issue than the more senior level in the organization would perceive to be. And also interesting here, the lack of burning platform. Not perhaps surprising that only 9% of the senior level in the organization see a missing burning platform for digital and launch is really an issue. But you see more on a lower level of the organization, a significant higher percentage of the organization believes that a lack of burning platform is also one of the key bottlenecks when digital channels are not considered for launch. The next question we have asked the industry was, what do you think are the top 3 benefits to orchestrate a digital enabled launch? And what you see, what comes up first is that improving customer engagement by aligning with their channel content and affinity was perceived as the biggest benefit of leveraging digital channels, which I think is good news because it's outside in, it's really coming from the customer and orchestrating, activities around their needs and pain points. And that is also coming up here as biggest benefit, why to use also digital activities to augment traditional offline activities. The second one, the industry says it's reaching more physicians, which was also coming up in our poll very high. And as a third one, you see that the impact, to improve the impact of offline efforts, like for example, scientific events, congresses where you have deep engagement activities, and then really supporting those offline efforts and augmenting them with digital channels was also seen as a key benefit of using digital channels. The good message here is that only 1% believe that it's not really a benefit. It's only just nice to have. So I think here the majority really believes there is a certain value thinking about digital for a product launch situation. On this slide is a little bit busy, but just also to bring all the different groups we have asked together. You see on the high experience, low experience, headquarter on local side. For the first one, improving customer engagement by aligning with their channel content and affinity. You see that is really something which is very important for the people from the headquarter and also for the high experience team. And when it comes to more from a reach and frequency perspective, overcoming physical access restrictions to target HCP and also increasing reach, that is more something people with a lower experience also and also people from a local affiliate more see as a key benefit when using digital channels as part of their omni-channel customer engagement mix. When we then ask the question, how internally aligned is your company for a digital engagement plan at a product launch? And I think that's a very striking result that you see only 15% of the respondents play back that they have a fully commercial, medical, and market access aligned plan, which is really incorporating into a holistic omni-channel engagement plan. And the majority of people say, yes, we are somewhat aligned, but each function has developed their own digital engagement plan to support the product launch. Of course, we would say that that's not an ideal situation because at the end, it's one customer and it's one phase to the customer that the company is providing to the customer. And therefore, this missing alignment, of course, can be seen as one of the key challenges how to then come to an orchestrated experience for the customer, which is seamless and also flawlessly executed. So it seems some more work needs to be done on an organizational level in the industry. If you look at this same question and look from, again, both groups with more experience and with lower experience, you see that the low experience teams are more likely to have a digital engagement plan only for commercial. If the experience is higher, then people also tend to align different other functions and align them across the holistic engagement plan to orchestrate a good experience with the customers. So for the low experience team, it seems more still a question of commercial. The higher the experience is, the higher is also there the alignment with medical, market access, and other functions. Then the question we asked next, and in terms of what do you believe are the digital channels which are most effective when launching a new product? And what the industry responded back is the channel which ranks highest here is e-medical education. I think that is not something very surprising. Then the next ranked channel was rep email, approved email, rep tablet detailing, pharma webinars. What's interesting in this picture that, for example, remote engagement like Viva Engage was ranked rather low. And also things like third-party e-newsletter was not really seen as a very effective channel when launching new product by the respondents. But if you look at the same picture now, the industry perspective in terms of what are the key channels the industry believes are really driving also a product launch, and we look also at the HCP perspective, only two areas I would like to highlight here. On the one side, remote engagement, which is perceived by the industry as not very effective to support a product launch. You see on the right side, and that is coming from our navigator data, where we look at more than 50 channels in a lot of different therapeutic areas and ask physicians how they perceive the impact and the reach of certain channels. And here are only a snapshot of those results in the specialist group in Europe. So in this panel, there are more than 2,400 specialists, so different areas like oncology, dermatology, cardiology, a lot of other specialties, overall more than 2,400 physicians in the EU5 countries. And you see that remote engagement is perceived from the physician with a very high impact. And we measure this with a multi-channel equivalent, where we put then the impact a physician is playing back in terms of the perception. We are correlating that to the impact of a rep. And you see, when you ask a physician, do you believe remote engagement has an impact on your prescribing behavior versus a rep visit, you see there is a very high impact of remote engagement. But still, the industry apparently is not really leveraging this opportunity. And you see the reach of remote engagement. That means, the offering to the physicians, it's very low, with only 15% of the physicians indicating that they have been also engaged with this channel in the last 3 months. And the same also for third-party newsletter. As you see on the left side in the snapshot results, people said third-party newsletter, e-newsletter, are not a very important channel to support a product launch. But you see, from a physician perspective, third-party newsletters not only having a significant impact on the prescription behavior, but also have a very reasonable reach. So here, definitely, it's very important to better understand what is really the physician perspective, how physicians look at different channels, different preferences, and then, of course, incorporating that in the mix of the channels to select then for the holistic customer engagement. When we ask then the group the question, how do you prioritize your digital channels for a product launch? What are your guiding principles to prioritize digital channels? So the majority of people said that with 38% that they do this based on the customer channel attitude and preference, so that they use some kind of a research where they look at reach, impact, frequency, cost, content, and the context of a channel. And I think that's good news that the majority of people use a rather evidence-based approach. But still, 11% they trust their own experience, their personal experience, and 9% trust their agency. So they are not, using their own insight, but leveraging the experience of a third party, of an agency, to build for them then the engagement mix. When we then ask the question, what do you plan to do differently for your next product launch? And you see here that the majority of people say to have a more evidence-based strategy, for them is the biggest lesson learned. 46% say to create a more evidence-based, robust omnichannel strategy versus just doing only a few tactics is really the thing they would like to do different when it comes to their next product launch. 25% say start planning sooner. I think coming back to the first poll we have said, where only a very few percentage of people said they are starting already 18 to 24 months before a product launch, thinking about how omnichannel and digital channel can really help to create disease awareness, to help the education of physician, really to help to make the target audience conversion ready when the product is there. You see that 25% of the respondents say they also consider to start planning sooner, and also considering then digital for earlier phases also of their product launch preparation. Another 23% say they also would like to spend much more on digital. I think it's a little bit a lukewarm result. It's only 23%, which means there's still a lot of efforts needed to convince people why investing in digital channels in our new reality really pays off. And that's also, what we would like to ask you in terms of, how ambitious is your company generally to increase digital spend for your product launches? Is that that you say, look, our company is very ambitious. We see digital first, and therefore also we put significant efforts behind also when it comes to budget? Is it that you would say somewhat we are increasing, but only very carefully? Is it that you would say not very, we still prefer traditional channels? Or is it, from your perspective, difficult to say because perhaps the company is not yet convinced about the impact? Please give your vote now. Another 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 1. Thank you very much. Let's have a look at the results. You see that, only 4% of the people are very ambitious, extremely ambitious, who think, digital first. The, majority of the people, the broad majority, to say 80%, say somewhat they are increasing, but very carefully. And still 12% they, not very, that they still prefer traditional channels. But I think, it's, some hope on those data that at least 80% they, yes, they have a tendency to increase the digital spend, but, still also very carefully. If you look, we have asked, of course, this question also in the snapshot. And there you can see that in terms of the ambition of the company the companies to capitalize on a digital engagement for launch, that 54% of all respondents say that their company is very or even extremely ambitious with harnessing digital for product launches. And you see that here the appetite is even higher in the very senior group, that here more than almost 60% of those, or more than 60% of those people say, we are extremely ambitious to harness digital for product launches. If we then ask, the same group, what is your overall satisfaction level with digital at launch? And you see, a little bit the, in contrast there, on the one side, there is a high ambition, but the current satisfaction level overall with a digital component of product launches is still very low. Only, less than 20% in our bigger multi-channel Maturometer respondents say we are extremely or very satisfied with digital at product launches. And you see, at the snapshot, only 5% that they are extremely or very satisfied. And there you see a big group there, they say, so what, it's, they are not really satisfied, not really dissatisfied. But you also see this big group there, still not really very convinced about, what they are doing with digital in a product launch situation. The good news is the higher the experience of the people is, the higher is also the satisfaction level. If you look then at the satisfaction level in the high experience group, you see there that there is a tendency that those people are more satisfied with their results using digital channels for product launches. And you see that in the low experience group, it's that's not really a group who have who've got already very good experiences. So I think they're still in a learning phase. But here the good news is that the higher the experience is, the higher is also the satisfaction in terms of using digital channels for product launches. When we then have asked the question in terms of future launches, what do you plan to do with your digital budget? And you say that very similar to what we have seen in our poll, that a big group say we increase a bit, 44%, 30% that we keep the same. But here, in the snapshot result, also 44% that we would like or we are going to increase significantly. And I think, you know, overall this together, that 88%, you know, think about to increasing that digital budget component for future launches, I think is a very good signal. But then if we look at the next question we have asked, you know, in terms of what percentage of your budget would you then allocate to digital initiatives? And that is here, you see here the percentage of the marketing budget. And you see in our snapshot results, 20%, you know, they said 20% I would then allocate of my marketing budget towards digital initiatives, and which is very consistent also with a multi-channel Maturometer results, where also roughly 20%, the people said 20% of their budget, marketing budget, they would allocate to digital initiatives. Again, you know, we always need to bring this in perspective. Is it much? Is it 20% of the marketing budget? Because if you look at the total promotional budget, you know, this is then correlating to only 4 to 5% of the total promotional budget of pharmaceutical companies. So it's still only a very low percentage which seems to be allocated to digital initiatives at this stage to support product launches. In the next section, we quickly look at, you know, also some differences between, you know, what local affiliates have responded back and what headquarter people have responded back. We asked the question, you know, how relevant is the digital launch support from headquarters the local affiliates are getting? You know, how relevant people in the countries feel that, you know, the headquarter is really providing them in terms of support for a digital enabled launch. And you see here that, you know, 43% consider digital launch support from the headquarter as very relevant for their own market. But also you see that 30% of the respondents say it's not really relevant. They are not really looking for a lot of support from the headquarter to orchestrate their local launch. And you see this, that is also, you know, it's not really translating also in a strong adaptation of central materials, which I think then also makes sense, because we have asked the question, to what extent do you leverage headquarter prepared launch support material from either then global or regional teams for your local launch campaigns? And you see that only a very small group there in our snapshot results, only of 13% that, you know, we in really 50 to 75% of the cases really we use really headquarter prepared material. In the multi-channel it was a little bit higher, with close to 20%, but you see also that there is a big group of people saying, you know, we are using less than 50% or even less than 25% of material which is provided by the headquarter. And here, of course, there is a big question, you know, what does it mean in terms of the productivity, efficiency, reusage really of content? It seems, you know, the industry needs to fix something there, because if materials are prepared which are not used by the local affiliates, it poses a question, of course, of efficiency of an agile content marketing and management engine. And then we also, of course, ask them the question, you know, what are the main issues, you know, when you are not leveraging headquarter provided international materials? And you see here the main issues people in the countries had with headquarter provided content. They said, you know, 35% that it's not really suited for my specific local market needs. And 27% they said, you know, normally it arrives too late for me to take them into account. And also another 26% that it's not fast and flexible enough for an agile digital engagement campaign. So here I think, you know, what is really very striking, on the one side it's a question about relevancy of globally developed materials, and on the other side it's all about the agility we of course need to have to orchestrate a lot of different touch points in a customer journey when it comes to an omnichannel customer engagement, where it seems that, you know, a very much global to local driven model has its challenges. We also, of course, ask them, you know, the headquarter people, you know, to play this back in terms of, you know, how do they involve the key local affiliates in their digital planning today? And you see that the majority of the headquarter people said, you know, we co-create a blueprint campaign plus assets together with key markets to ensure local buy-in. They believe they have already a good co-creation, but you have seen from a local affiliate perspective, the biggest bottleneck was, that globally created material is not really local, not having enough local relevance and local impact. The second thing, what the headquarter people said, we create central blueprint campaign plus assets, but then only share this with the countries for local adaptation. A fewer number of people said that it's a very much global to local different approach. 11% that they create a global blueprint, and it's also executed above country. I think the good news here is it seems there is a good willingness to really co-create together with the local affiliates to ensure local customer proximity, but also relevance in the local markets. But as you have seen from a local perspective, there seems to be still a long way to go to have a very good alignment between global on region headquarters together with the local affiliates to really make best usage of globally developed material. We also ask, how is the willingness of regional or global headquarters to involve key local markets in their digital planning in the future? And you see here the broad majority said, 47% we will continue to co-create a blueprint campaign plus assets together with them. So there's a high willingness in terms of co-creation, and I think that that's good news. That the headquarter also favors a very close engagement with the local affiliates when it comes to co-creation of content, which then also should then ensure relevance for the different markets in terms of execution. So this had been, the results of the snapshot Maturometer around digital enabled launches. We will have also the broadcast of this presentation on our website. What you also can do, you can ask us questions using the chat functionality. So if you have any kind of questions, you can ask us, and then we will follow up with you on an individual basis. We thank you very much for the attention, and we are very much looking forward to meeting you next time to one of our next snapshot results. All the best and have a very nice evening.